You're listening to The Women in the Arena. I'm your host, Paige and Amanda, former collegiate athlete turned leadership entrepreneur for women just like you. Each week, I'm bringing you a new person or message to help you expand and elevate into the woman you know you're meant to be. Now, let's step into the arena. Hey, you guys, we are back inside the arena, and I'm super excited to have Amanda here. She's known as Simply Mander on Instagram. She has 116,000 followers, and I've actually been following her journey for quite some time. So I'm excited to dig into conversation and let you guys be a part of it. So Amanda, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So I want to know, do you consider yourself a nutritionist, influencer, all of the above? Like, tell me what you even think about your title.
It's really funny that you asked me this because I'm in the middle of like a quarter life crisis, because I actually just was saying this the other day. Like, I don't want to be a fitness influencer anymore. Like, that's not what I want people to think of me. So my full-time job is a nutritionist. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, technically. And so that is what I do and have done for 7 years now. I've also coached CrossFit Kids, Olympic weightlifting, and now I'm coaching like the strength and conditioning at our boxing gym, which is pretty cool because they're kind of wanting to like branch out into more strength things for their boxers, like their competitors. So I coach that, but then yes, Instagram, YouTube, social media is still a part of that because I think people sometimes find me for nutrition like through social media. So I would say kind of yes, like all of the above.
Yeah, you obviously have a lot going on. And I think that's what makes following you really fun, because it seems like you're always doing something different. You're excited about the projects that you're working on. And I saw that you're doing boxing, which is really cool. I mean, how did you even get into that? How did you transition into boxing?
I wanted to quit CrossFit a little bit because I was feeling discouraged, just a tad. And I was like, well, why don't I just try something I've never tried before? I've pretty much tried like every sport that there is. And I'm really, to be honest with you, I'm not a very like athletic person by like nature. It's just not me. So I was like, well, let me just try something like totally out of my comfort zone. And I don't really remember how I landed upon boxing. I think it was just like, let me back up. When I was younger, I thought for sure that I wanted to be like a UFC fighter. Like that's what I was like, oh, I want to be a UFC fighter when I'm older. And then everyone was like, no, like you mess your face up. You're going to have broken nose and ears all the time. And so then I just like never, followed it. And I was like, well, boxing is kind of like that, except for you have like headgear and stuff. So you're not like really getting hit in the face that bad. So that's why I picked boxing.
Yeah, definitely want to protect the face. And that's so funny. That's so funny you share that. So if you feel like you didn't have like much of an athletic background, what drew you to the fitness world? Like take us back to the beginning. Where did it come from?
Initially, when I was trying to like decide what like career I wanted to go into, I was in criminal justice, like in school and college. And I was like, oh, I think I might want to go into law enforcement. And I was really small, like really small. I was like 100 pounds. And I was like, well, there's no way that anyone's going to take me seriously. I'm not going to be able to like fight anyone. I'm not, and it was more of like a safety situation for me that kind of got me into it. And, there is a really big crossover with law enforcement and firefighters and CrossFit. There's just a lot of that. And I think that's kind of where I like first initially got into it. And then ultimately like that career just wasn't for me either. And so I realized I liked coaching and being a part of fitness and nutrition a lot more. And that's how I transitioned from that into fitness and nutrition.
There's definitely a huge crossover between CrossFit and first responders. It's really big. We're about to get into the 2024 CrossFit Open. Are you doing it this year? You said you were feeling discouraged and kind of moving away. Are you going to do it, or where's your head at?
Yeah, I think I might do it just to see, because I really haven't been training CrossFit competitively for the last like 6 months, I'd say. And so I would be curious to see like just purely focusing on strength, if it really like translates into being able to keep up with where I was at like competitively before. So I think maybe just from a standpoint of just like seeing where I am would be cool. And that gets released tomorrow, actually. So I'm excited to see what it is. I think I'll make my decision based on what the first workout is. I'll be like, oh, I don't know about that.
I know. I feel like a lot of us are in that boat. And I mean, I coach CrossFit and I've been doing it competitively for I don't know, 5 years or so. And so I want to get into where you feel discouraged, because I look at you and I see your lifts, and I've done your bodybuilding program and I've really been enjoying it. I'm on week 5 actually. And so, yeah, I've really been enjoying it. It almost feels like an accessory to CrossFit. Like it's really supporting like all the posterior muscles.
100%.
And so people are asking me that at the gym. And like, I'm obviously a coach, so I'm not trying to like steer them away from anything, but I'm like, this is so supportive to the sport. I'm jumping around, but where did you feel discouraged in your training?
Yeah. So for listeners who like aren't super familiar, when it comes to like a very high end competitive CrossFit, you're either in with the crowd where you kind of know what goes on or you don't. And I say this, like I've dabbled on podcasts on this topic before, and I have to like be gentle with how I say this, because it sounds like I'm coming across as like a hater or like I'm accusing everyone of being on steroids. And like, that's really not the thing. But I have to say, as somebody who has been in with a lot of elite athletes, I have seen firsthand how many people are on some form of something.
What?
Yes. It could be something as simple as TRT. Like they're saying, their testosterone is really low. They're going to that. They're doing that, on their own time. And that's one of those things where like they don't really have to say anything about it because they have low testosterone. They're getting prescribed by a doctor, so on and so forth. You have low doses of Anavar. You have SARMs that are really popular in CrossFit. You have so many of these things. And I started when I had a coach back in Florida, and one of our first responders there at the gym was also really tight with the hormone clinic that was providing pretty much all of the PEDs for all of the elite level athletes at that gym. And that was like when I first realized like, oh, wow, like there's a lot of people that are taking stuff, right? And I was like really gung-ho about like, I'm going to be the only natural one, like I'm going to do it. And like, as you've seen, like my lifts have very steadily increased over 10 years. What would happen was like, I would start to lose sight of who was and who wasn't, and what were they doing and what were they not doing. And I'm going to preface this by also saying like, this is 100% a me problem. Like I understand that I'm the one that's feeling like, whether it's jealousy or whatever emotion that it may be, like I'm looking at someone and like, let's say they're not telling me the truth, or I'm not asking like, hey, are you using SARMs? Are you using this? I was starting to say in my head, like, well, how can it really be a fair comparison if I don't know what the variables are? Like, are we really at the same level or are we not? And it started to make me feel like, how do I know if I can get to that next level if I truly don't know what the other competitors are doing to be on the same level or not? And it's something that like you'll never know unless obviously somebody gets popped for steroids, which like happens all the time. But you don't have to be actively on steroids to be using PEDs. Like people can cycle on and off all the time. Like I've seen it. So
no, this is fascinating to me, honestly, to hear your perspective, because I know that you've been in the sport for a while, and I don't want to make this whole, like, don't worry guys, I'm not going to make this whole podcast about CrossFit, but I do think it's really interesting because like my fiance has said some things before to me about it. And I'm always living in this like rose colored glasses. I'm like, no, everybody's natural. Nobody does that. That's kind of what you want to believe because you just want to be able to compete. And that is a huge part of the sport. And I want to compete and I want to win. Like that is why I do it a lot of times. But you're so right when it comes to the comparison game. And like, yes, do I feel jealous? Yeah. Like when I watch some athletes compete and I'm not putting in the time to be at that level, like, yeah, I get jealous. And then I have to bring myself back down to earth and be like, okay, but you're not training there either.
Exactly. And that's the thing too. Like I also don't want people to get the like misconception that I'm saying like all the elite people are like just taking steroids and doing nothing else. I'm totally not saying that. I just think that like there are some things that you really will never know. And when it comes to being the best of the best, like people are willing to go to the extreme lengths to do whatever it is that takes to be the best of the best. And so like, this is why you're going to see these things in the NFL, the NHL, MLB. Like this is not just CrossFit specific. Whenever there's money involved, unfortunately, it's the way that elite sports are. And like, I hate to be that person that's like jaded and saying like, yeah, okay. But like, you have to be realistic. And I wasn't like, I was in your position, right? Like I thought that if I trained like 8 hours a day and I just like ate perfectly, that I would be like these people. And like, the reality is that like, for me, that isn't really true. Like there's really only so far that genetics and time and dedication can take you. And of course, like if you are adding that extra layer in of enhancements, no matter what that may be, like you are going to have an edge. I'm sorry. Like it is the truth. And I think people don't want to accept that because they want CrossFit to be seen as like this very wholesome, work hard, thing. And that's great. It is. Again, I'm not shit talking CrossFit. I'm going to get so much hate for this, but like you have to be realistic. Like there's just no way, like I've been training for 10 years and then I see somebody who just starts last year and then they're snatching 215 at my body weight. And I'm like, okay, I can't. Like, and I don't want to be like, oh, they're on steroids. But also that entire comparison game is like the answer to your question. It's why, because I was being like, is it really a fair competition anymore? Is it?
Well, I think just knowing the mindset, like in any arena that you're in, there's always a level of comparison. And I think that's what makes things challenging. And it's like, there's one thing to look at somebody like, okay, me watching your socials, I'm like, I really like what she does. I like how she shows up unapologetically as herself, shares when it sucks, shares when it's good. Like there's that inspiration, but then there's also the other end of the spectrum where you let things slip a little bit and you're like, oh, but maybe I should be doing what she's doing, or I should, and like using it as like getting outside of your own lane, if you will. So I guess I'll use that to kind of segue. I mean, you've shared your life publicly for a long time. So can you talk to us a little bit about like the upside and the downside of that? Because I know you've experienced a lot.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm like, it's such a small scale. Like it is on such a small scale that I can't even fathom what it must be like on like a millions and millions of followers level. And I just said this on my story the other day. I don't know if you saw it. I was saying how like I went back and I was watching some of my old things from like 2016, 17. And I was like, who let me do this? Like, why was I talking about this on social media? And so, yeah, I think there's good and bad. Like I said, I just started sharing my journey in CrossFit. That was initially what got me a following because there wasn't really such a thing as CrossFit like vlogging back then. And that was like what I got into. And the positives are that, you really can connect with awesome people. You can inspire people who like you wouldn't really see on a daily basis. And I've met some really great people. I've been so blessed to have like super cool opportunities and things that I wouldn't have in a traditional job. But I will say that sometimes I do feel the negative outweighs just a little bit. And it sucks to say that, but the amount of time, there's like two boxes that I feel like really takes up the negative side. And the first is the amount of like enmeshment that you become with the social media itself. Like I no longer am just like living my own life. I mean, I am off camera, obviously, but like everything because of the type of like influencer, quote unquote, that I am still revolves around my life and what I'm doing. So it almost feels like, where is that line to draw with like sharing and not sharing? And then the other negative is obviously when you put things on the internet, like you have to deal with people giving their opinion on it. Like even if, good, bad, and ugly, like the thing that is crazy to me is that like people will say things about you, like no matter what. It doesn't matter if you don't do anything controversial, you don't have a scandal, whatever. Like if you are in the public in any way, shape, or form, people are going to talk about you. They're going to say things that aren't true. They're going to say mean things. They're going to rip apart your appearance. I'd say like as a subcategory to that, what it's done for my like physical insecurities has been unlike anything I've ever experienced in my entire life. And like everyone, I think at least a lot of us have experienced bullying like as a kid, but it's so weird when you're an adult, like experiencing bullying and like having it affect you. It's just something I never thought would be like a side effect of it when I first started.
You guys, when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, I had very few examples of women in leadership positions. And sometimes when I shared what I was building with my friends or with my coworkers at the time, they just didn't really get it. Even when I wanted to create some new goals and talk about those ambitions, I didn't feel like I had a community of women to share that with, which is why I found an online community of other multi-passionate, like-minded women. If you can relate, join us in our Rise Facebook community where you get free weekly coaching, a network of amazing women who are also in the arena, and you're the first to know about the latest offers. Women leaders rise together. See you inside our Rise Facebook community. You can find the link in the show notes. When you said like the difference between trying to draw the line about being like transparent, but then like having your own sense of privacy is something that I've not on the same level, but like definitely struggled with when it comes to like I want to cast a realistic picture of like entrepreneurship, right? Like I left my full-time job and I started doing performance and leadership coaching, and painted the picture of like financial freedom, time freedom. And while that's true, I have a hard time trying to decide, okay, but like, should I show me crying on the floor once a week, or like, you know what I mean? Because I'm not trying to make it a pity party, but I also do want to paint a realistic picture. And so it's like, how have you been able to find that balance and that rhythm between, how much to share and how much not to share?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I learned through my divorce, the relationship side of things. And I'm actually like in the middle of this weird like phase with this right now as well, because that's what people love. Like, it's so funny because people love to see your real life behind the scenes. And so when I was married before, I really did like show a lot. He was really involved in like a lot of things in terms of like my social media, not really like in my real life, but in social media, like he was there, And when we got divorced, it was like everybody needed to know every single detail. It was all over everything. There was like so much speculation. There was rumors. There was this. And I just remember being like, oh my God, never again. Because I was trying to like not talk ill about him and his family. And it's like, how can you even like navigate that situation when everyone knows something is happening, and then you say like, oh, you're getting divorced and you can't say anything else, because then people are just going to speculate and say whatever they want to say. So like, I think the relationship side of things has been really difficult for me to navigate. Then on top of that, then I came out publicly on social media in the summer of 22, I think it was. And then that like started all over again. And I was actually hiding my current relationship for a while before I ever posted on social media. I was so scared. But I think that's why, like I was like, I need to protect you from this because like, this is so crazy. So I like figuring out how to handle the, like relationship side of things has been really challenging. But, like I was saying, people love that. Like I will literally make a reel, and like, it'll be like this educational nutrition thing. I worked so hard on it, edited it for like an hour, and I'll post it. It flops. No one cares. 0 likes. And then like, I'll post this like just this silly little like cute video of me and Miranda doing like nothing. And it's like viral. I'm like, oh my God. So like, I'm at that point where it's like, okay, I know what people want to see, but also at the expense of what? Like at the expense of my mental health. So no, you're getting the bare minimum.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. And I don't know, like you want to draw more followers because it leads to more opportunities at times, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, what am I attracting if I am just sharing? Like, I want to share more about like my life, and I do behind the scenes a lot, like about my fiance or like my journey or whatever, because getting to the point to being in a healthy relationship was a lot. But even in that journey, I think to myself, like, I love sharing this, but then are the people that are going to follow me going to want more of this because I'm more of in the performance space? So it's just hard.
It's really hard. And that's kind of where I'm like, I don't know really what I'm supposed to post or what I'm not supposed to post anymore. Like, I truly have no idea. So yeah, it's just a weird dynamic between like the people, because they really feel like they know you, because, you've shared so much on the internet, like I have over the years. So they feel like they are a part of your life in some way. So it's a really interesting phenomenon, like the parasocial relationships between people's followers and like who they follow.
Yeah. With women empowerment in particular, talking about social media, I mean, where do you feel, most powerful? I know that's a pretty broad question, but as we're talking about like navigating this like wild roller coaster of being visible with your life and trying to continually evolve and grow and build your brand and change, like, where do you feel most powerful through that journey?
That's a good question. I think really like what you said in the beginning, kind of just doing like unapologetically me kind of things, I would say is probably like my most me empowered feeling. Like when I did my coming out video, or like when I just like posted whatever I wanted and I didn't really care. I think that was super empowering for me. And I think women in general just don't feel like they can do that because of society and because of the patriarchy, and we're judged. We're already judged as it is being women. And then, you add being queer to the list, and you add having tattoos or being in CrossFit, whatever. Like there's so many things that make you feel like you're not able to be like strong and be powerful in that space. So I would say just being really like unapologetically me, probably.
Yeah. Well, I think you do a really good job at that. I really do. Even when I'm like watching your stories or looking at your content, I feel connected, which I know is now a bad thing, like a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because like you just do seem so you. But like you talk about a lot of the hurdles with socials, right? Like you talk about how it's challenging to, go through the divorce that you went through and then come out and then also like share the things that you want to share. But you're sitting here telling me like I've done it all. So like with the coming out video, what is it that like eventually nudges you to just go for it? Because I want listeners to hear like, what is it that it takes? Because you know what you want, but you're here on island A and what you want is on island B. So what is that nudge? Like, what is that thing that pushes you there?
I think not caring about what people are going to say and do, because like that was, I think, so much of my hurdle with so many things surrounding my divorce. I was like, oh my God, what are people going to say? What are people going to do? This and that. And then what I realized was that they're going to say and do that anyway, like regardless of what I did or said. And I think it just took me experiencing it to understand that. And then, people started saying things about my divorce that weren't true. And it was making me so upset. Like I was literally just like bursting at the seams to be like, that is literally not what happened. And then I realized that like all of those people, specifically like in the Midwest that were like saying these things, they were saying like, oh, it's because she's lesbian, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, if you're going to like push this narrative about me that like you want, like, let me do it. Let me have the power to do it. And so like, that's kind of where it came from. So I think in my particular case, it was more so that like, I felt like I wasn't being able to say things that I wanted to say, like out of my own mouth, and people were speaking for me. Like I did that mostly just to take back what I wanted to say about myself. And like, if you're going to say that like I'm gay and that's the reason why X, Y, and Z, then like, okay, I'm going to show you that I'm gay. And that's, you know what I mean? Like it was just more of a fuck you, honestly. That's really what it was like for me. And so I think when you have that mentality of like saying, okay, you're going to go from what, like you said, this island A to island B, you have to just be like, okay, well, I don't care. I don't care what anyone says about it. Like I'm going to try to do it. And you just have to literally like go for it. I think that's like bridging that gap.
Yeah, I think it's so inspiring to hear, because I can't even imagine like sharing, so much of what you do and then having to go through that. But I think at the same time, what you said about like taking your power back is so powerful. And I know it sounds cliche, but you have this like real life example that you're able to share with us where it's like, no, somebody was going to speak for me, so I decided to speak for myself. And it's like, if anybody's listening and there's anything in front of you that you're hesitant about or you're making a decision about, it's like you can take your power back in that, not by wondering, but by taking action. And so I think that's huge. Is there anything else you can say about that experience or anything you learned navigating your divorce and then coming out and like your current relationship that you just want to share? It may be somebody else that's going through something similar.
Yeah, there's always somebody that is going through something similar. You feel like there's not, but there really is. And so like I really tried to confide in the people that I trusted and like let them know how I was really feeling. And just like navigating it publicly, I think was probably not the move in terms of my divorce. Like, I don't know that maybe your audience is struggling with that. They might not be like sharing their divorce publicly on the internet, but when it comes to like making a decision or, in this specific example, I would say for me, what it was like was knowing that where I was in my life was actually not aligning with like my core beliefs and my core morals and like who I was as a person. And it was more so revealed to me throughout like a certain time period that like the people that I was surrounded by actually didn't really love me for who I was. They were loving this like version of me that suited their lives and that worked for them. And so like I started noticing that like, for example, they didn't want me to say certain things on social media about what I believed in. And they were like, but it was presented to me in a way that was like, oh, like it's not your job to talk about this, politics and that, because like you're fitness and you're not supposed to do that and blah, blah, blah. And at the time I was like, oh, like they probably just want the best for me. They don't want me to get hate, whatever. But now like looking back, I realize it's because we had such polar opposite morals and things like that. And so I found myself in this battle of like, oh my gosh, I'm in a place that actually is not who I am. And so like, I knew that I needed to get out of it and I was going to. It was just a matter of like how I was going to do it gracefully. And I don't necessarily know that I achieved the graceful part, if I'm being honest, but just like that knowing if you're ever, no matter what this relates to, this can be like relationships, friendships, jobs, whatever. Like if you're in a place where you feel like the people around you don't really know the real you or don't really love the real you, or you don't really align morally with like your surroundings, what I can tell you from being able to experience it and get out of it is that it was the best decision of my life to leave that environment, hands down. Like out of all of the chaos that came from it and the lies and the rumors and all of that stuff, still I would do it 100 times because it taught me like really who I was, and also that I could not thrive and live in an environment dimming down the person that I was for the sake of other people.
So good. Preach. I mean, I think it's so hard. It's so much easier to say like life is lived forward, but understood in hindsight sometimes. But I think what you said is so powerful. It's like I just had to really get grounded and connected with who I am. And then, you start to notice everything else that doesn't fall into place. So I am so thankful for you sharing that. Whether the listeners are into CrossFit or going through a divorce, whatever, I think there's a lot of value in this because you're just being so real and honest. And that's, again, why I like to follow you in the first place. So my last question for you is something that I ask everybody who I get to interview and speak with on the Women in the Arena podcast. So, Amanda, what does it mean to be a woman in the arena to you? What is the definition of a woman in the arena?
I think that it is to be able to like partake in things that you may not have felt like you were strong enough to do. Like you're able to do these things that maybe it was people or men or the patriarchy or whatever, like they make you feel like you can't play with anybody else. And so like being a woman in the arena is saying like, hey, I can show up and I can do this too. And I can be me and I can just crush it being a woman.
Yeah, I love that. Like you can find a space wherever you want to be. Where can people listening find you? And before you answer that, let me say I love her bodybuilding program. You guys know I do CrossFit. I added that in. I'm on week 5, and I know you offer other types of coaching. So where can people find you?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's just simply Manders. Same with YouTube and TikTok. And then I do work for Black Iron Nutrition, which is just a nutrition company, whereas that is where like I do all of my nutrition weekly coaching and things like that. So yeah, and the app, if you're looking for like a fitness app that has workouts and things, that is all just simply mander.app if you want to see that.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. Everybody go follow. We'll have information in the show notes, and let us know what lands with you in this conversation, and tag us and just let us know what you heard. Because it's always nice to hear back. Sometimes you feel like you're talking to a wall until somebody comes out of the woodwork and is like, thank you.
Or if they want to hear like a specific like topic story, we could do on like something, we can do that too.
Yeah, I would love it. So, okay. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I hope today's episode inspired you on your journey in the arena. Make sure to check out the show notes in the description for a rundown of today's show with all the important links. If you enjoyed this, please share with a friend. I know how much it means to me when my friends share podcasts. Leave us a review and let us know what landed with you over on Instagram at Paige_Renee15. As always, your best bet is on yourself.